Welcome inside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. All right, Chris, this is the bye week for the Patriots, a well-earned and well-deserved bye week for the Patriots, who finished 12-4. But a lot of news made on Monday. Let's first of all start with the comments made by Jets owner Woody Johnson. At first he said, boy, I'd love to have Darrelle Revis back with the Jets and would love to go after him in the offseason. Then somebody, I think, got to Mr. Johnson and said, that might be a little bit of tampering. You might want to apologize and clarify your comments, if you will. Bill Belichick here at Gillette Stadium and telling WEEI on Monday afternoon that he expects the league to look into that, and that's probably the course of action that will take place. What kind of penalty, if any, should we expect from the NFL towards the Jets owner?
A slap on the wrist. I don't think anything serious is going to come from a situation like this. I think he realized his gaffe fairly immediately. He called Robert Kraft. He kind of backpedaled on that, and so I think it was a simple slip of the tongue, as simple as it can be in this kind of situation. I would be shocked if there was any sort of long-term ramifications for the stadium.
No draft picks coming to the
exactly,
Patriots.
No draft picks, no financial fine of any sort. So I do think that the thing is wrapped up relatively quickly. I think it's interesting, though, that we have to remember, and I know we're going to talk about the Tom Brady contract situation, a lot of people are presuming that Darrelle Revis is a free agent after this year just because of the contract situation.
He is not.
Exactly. He's under contract for the 2015 season, so I think that's maybe where the slip of the tongue came in, but I don't think anything serious is going to happen as a result of it.
But the Patriots certainly, I don't think, are going to pay Darrelle Revis $20 to $25 million to play football next year. As great of a cornerback and as big of an impact as he has had here in New England. Obviously, I can't blame Woody Johnson and kill him that much, because he, told the New York media it wasn't his idea not to bring him back. He thought it would be a great idea to have Darrelle Revis back, but John Idzik went a different direction. He is no longer with the Jets, as is Rex Ryan. Both were relieved of their duties on Monday, Black Monday in the NFL, several other coaching vacancies. That brings us to the next subject I want to address, Josh McDaniels. At this time every year, Chris, his name comes up. I know you reported it, and you had also mentioned that the Falcons and 49ers might be interested in talking to Josh McDaniels, as has been the case the last couple of years during this time when the Patriots have had the bye week. With the Falcons, of course, there is a direct correlation and affiliation with Thomas Dimitroff, who used to work here in New England. What are the possibilities Josh McDaniels gets serious consideration in Atlanta or San Francisco?
I think he should get serious consideration. I don't know if he's essentially interested in another job at this point in his career, but I think it does him well to listen to the offers out there. I think a lot of things go into play when you're talking about someone like McDaniels in the situation that he's in right now. Contract. Control over the franchise, control over personnel, hiring, firing, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, the rest of the staff. A lot of it goes into it. I think if there was one natural fit, it would seem to be Atlanta,
right,
for the reasons that you mentioned, the connection with Thomas Dimitroff, the connection that he has there. I think ultimately it behooves him to at least listen. I think that sends out a message that he's interested down the road. Maybe not this year, but he's interested. I always think back to the Nick Caserio situation last year where he interviewed for the Miami GM job. He was out there. He put it out there that he was interested in a different job, and it doesn't hurt to listen. I'll say that. My take is he's not interested in a different job right now,
unless he gets blown away.
Exactly, unless he gets some sort of ridiculous Godfather offer where he gets an unbelievable financial deal, complete control over the franchise. Right. That's a different matter. I don't think anyone's going to be giving that kind of deal to him, at least as it stands right now. But again, it never hurts to listen.
I mentioned this in my column on WEEI.com after the game on Sunday, in keeping Nick Caserio. I think it's a package deal. I obviously could be very wrong about that, but I think if the Patriots want to keep Caserio, they also want to keep McDaniels.
Yeah, I think that the basic core of your, not quite your front office, but your coaching staff, your front office, that group, those guys who make the team-building decisions, you want to do your due diligence when it comes to keeping all of them in the building at the same time. And so I think the idea of McDaniels, Caserio, Belichick, possibly Brady, that group together going forward for another 5 years or so, you have to feel pretty good about where you are if you're the Patriots.
Okay, this brings us to our next subject, and that is Tom Brady. What I think is fascinating is, let's say Josh McDaniels gets a Godfather offer, or let's say Atlanta really sweetens the pot, draws him away from New England. Does that impact Tom Brady's decision-making, if he has any, going forward?
I think it plays a minimal role, but I don't think ultimately it's going to be the sort of thing that might be a deciding factor if Brady has to choose, say, between New England and Atlanta. I think Brady's very smart. I think Brady's very savvy. He understands what he has here right now with this program, with this franchise, the working relationship that he not only has with Kraft, but Belichick, the rest of the franchise. He's in a really good spot right now. I don't know if I would be so inclined to jump to, say, Atlanta in 2 or 3 years, even if a friend like Josh McDaniels is there.
Right.
I think he's very secure in where he is. I think he's very safe in where he is. Now, that brings us to the idea of the contract.
Right.
And 2 or 3 years down the road, the reworking of the contract that took place this week, that gives everybody an easy financial out if they wanted to make it. I don't think, though, that's what they had in mind when they put it together, at least with the idea of would he leave for a job, say, with Josh McDaniels or Thomas Dimitroff or whoever else might be out there a couple years down the road.
Okay. The restructuring, the third time, Chris, since 2012 that Tom Brady, out of the goodness of his heart and other reasons, has restructured his contract. He will get a base salary of $8 million, I believe it is, in 2015, and it goes up $1 million each year through 2017. The big kicker, of course, is the $24 million in guaranteed money. He gave that up. But, again, the thinking is, the smart man's thinking inside Gillette Stadium, he's going to get that money one way or another. He's not just sacrificing it to the Kraft family to go out and buy free agents. I assume that is your view as well, because you have free agents in Devin McCourty and others, and you have somebody like a Darrelle Revis under contract, but obviously it would behoove the Patriots financially to restructure and re-sign long-term.
Yeah, I think they're two different things when you're talking about the current contract that was redone this week. I think really, though, the most important thing is it gives them some financial flexibility. It, again, like we said, if both sides decide to say, all right, look, we're going to cut bait in a couple of years, no one's going to owe anyone any money, no one's going to have any sort of obligation to each other. It allows for a clean break if that
right.
ultimately
right.
ultimately happens in, again, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. The other thing too that's important to remember, they have a lot of key free agents here. You're looking at here, whether it's Devin McCourty, whether it's Stephen Gostkowski, whether it's Shane Vereen. And again, the Revis situation aside, they have a lot of really interesting contract decisions they have to make. This gives them a little bit more financial flexibility looking forward to 2015.
Okay, let's just say they go out and win the Super Bowl. Tom Brady, is he here next year? Can you foresee a situation where he decides as soon as next year? Because that thought we've talked about it earlier in the season, has been floated out there that this very well could be Brady's last season if certain factors fall the right way.
I think he's coming back next year. I know that we've kicked it around a couple of times over the course of the year, especially earlier in the season when you're looking at a 37-year-old quarterback who's struggling a little bit, a team that's sitting at 2-2, and you don't know what the future holds. I think given what's happened over the last couple of months with this team, with this franchise, again, you go back to the working relationship that he has with Belichick, the longest continuous working relationship between a coach and a quarterback in the NFL. He knows what he has here. I think he'd be one to sacrifice a few dollars here or there if it means another, getting a chance to come back and win another ring.
Okay, let's talk about the AFC playoff picture. Wild card weekend, of course. I think a fascinating game. Baltimore at Pittsburgh on Saturday night in Pittsburgh. Le'Veon Bell has a right knee issue. He may or may not be able to play. No ligament damage is the report. But who do you like in that game and why?
If Bell is not healthy, that completely changes the complexion of that ball game. I think that
agreed.
He's the game changer in that one. I think if Bell is healthy, I think you got to like Pittsburgh at home in a situation like that, going up against the Baltimore defense that struggled a little bit over the course of the second half of the season. If Bell isn't able to go, I think that game's a toss-up. I love those AFC North battles, especially at this time of year, those great physical battles. I think if Bell can't go, you're looking at a game that's maybe decided by a field goal or less.
I cannot envision a way where Andy Dalton goes in to Indianapolis and beats Andrew Luck. I just don't see it on Sunday afternoon. I see Indianapolis coming away victorious in that game. I assume you would agree.
Yeah, I do too. I think that Indianapolis is not the long-term success story, at least this postseason, but I think a home game on Wild Card weekend, that's a winnable matchup for Indianapolis, almost regardless of who you're facing. I think you have to feel pretty good about where you are if you're Indianapolis in that ball game. the way they finished off the year, there's still a few questions about that defense, that running game as well, but I think the fact that they are at home will be enough to put them over the top when you're talking about their showdown with the Bengals.
And A.J. Green has to go through a concussion protocol. Very likely possibility he doesn't play at all. And I just don't like the chances. I think the Bengals fall to 0-6 in the playoffs under Marvin Lewis and 0-4 with Andy Dalton as a playoff quarterback. We shall see. We're going to get in from out of the freezing cold here at Gillette Stadium. We wish everybody a happy, healthy, and safe 2015 and a happy new year. For Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia inside Gillette Stadium, WEEI.com.